I've watched men I would trust with my own life lose their nerve. Not often, but it happens. Even the best ones, the ones with the steady hands and the dead calm eyes, every now and then something cracks and you see the boy underneath the man. What I had never seen, not once in 11 years, was all of us lose it at the same time. There was one night where that almost happened, where the whole team went quiet in a way that wasn't discipline. It was fear. The kind that fills your mouth with metal and makes the radio in your ear sound like it's underwater. We were that close. I can say it now without feeling like a coward because the only reason I'm here saying anything at all is a voice that came over the net that night. A woman's voice, not loud, not panicked, just two words flat as a table. Target locked. I'll get to that, let me back up. We were a small element, 6 of us on the ground plus our overwatch who I'll talk about in a minute. The op was supposed to be simple, they always say that. Simple. In and out before sunrise, grab what we came for, slip back down the valley to the pickup. Nobody briefs you on the part where simple turns into a nightmare somewhere around 3 in the morning. The country doesn't matter much for the story. Mountains. High and cold and ugly, the kind of place where the rocks have edges that catch your gear and your skin. It was late autumn up there, which meant the days were still warm enough to make you sweat under the plates, but the nights dropped fast. By the time we moved into position, the cold had crawled all the way into my boots. We staged before midnight. I remember sitting there in the dark, back against a boulder, listening to the wind come down off the ridge in long pulls, like the mountain was breathing. You learn to notice stuff like that when you do enough of these. The quiet has a texture to it, and that night the quiet felt wrong, though if you'd asked me to explain why, I couldn't have. Our team lead was a guy named Dern. Big shoulders, slow to talk, the kind of leader who'd rather show you than tell you. I'd followed him into worse places than this and come out the other side, so when he gave the nod, none of us thought twice. There was Bishop on point, lean and quick, always chewing gum even when the rest of us were too dry to swallow. There was Akaffer, our breacher, a man who could open a door 3 different ways and joke about it the whole time. There was a young one, Tully, on his first real rotation with us, still trying to prove he belonged. There was me somewhere in the middle doing the job I'd done 100 times, and there was Dern out front. And then there was the 7th. Up on the high ground, half a mile back and a couple 100 feet above us was our overwatch. The eyes, the one who'd sit perfectly still in the cold and the dark for hours and call out anything that moved before it became our problem. On the net she went by Echo, her name was Mara Vance. Now I want to be honest about something because if I'm not, the rest of this story doesn't land the way it should. When I first heard we were getting her on Overwatch, I had a thought, not a proud thought, the kind of thought you keep behind your teeth. I'd worked with a lot of shooters and they were all cut from the same rough cloth and she didn't look like that cloth. Quiet, small almost, didn't fill a room, didn't try to. When the team would get loud and stupid before a job, blowing off steam, she'd just sit off to the side cleaning her rifle like it was the only thing in the world that deserved her attention. I figured she was somebody's idea of a good look on paper. I figured we'd carry her if it came to it. I have never been more wrong about a single human being in my life. And before that night was over, every man on that team would have walked through fire to shake her hand. But I'm getting ahead again. We moved into the village just after 1. Calling it a village is generous. A scatter of stone buildings clinging to a slope, terraced fields stacked above and below, goat paths instead of roads. The kind of place that looks the same as it did 1,000 years ago. There was one structure we cared about, low and flat-roofed, at the far end where the slope started to fall away into the valley. The approach went clean, that was the first sign actually. It went too clean, no dogs, there are always dogs in places like that and they always know before the people do. But that night nothing, just the wind and our own footsteps and Bishop's quiet chewing in my ear. Dern keyed up, Echo, you good? Her voice came back, soft and even. Good, got eyes on the whole front face, 2 structures right of your target, hot, movement inside, counting figures now. She always talked like that, no wasted words, no drama, just the facts laid out flat where you could see them. We stacked on the target building. Akaffer went to work on the door, quiet as he could be, which was very quiet. I had my back to the wall, watching the dark up the slope, and I felt that wrongness again, that breathing mountain feeling. I told myself it was nerves. I told myself a lot of things that night. Then Echo's voice changed, just slightly. A man who didn't know her wouldn't have caught it. Hold, she said. Hold, I've got vehicles, lights off, coming up the valley road. 3 correction 4 moving fast for that road. Dern's hand came up, we froze. How far, he said. 1,100 meters and closing. They knew you were coming, Dern. This isn't a patrol, they're spacing out. You don't want to hear those words on a job. Spacing out means somebody on the other side has training. Somebody is thinking. Somebody isn't going to bunch up and make himself easy. And the part that turned my stomach was the first part. They knew you were coming, which meant our simple, in-and-out, home-before-breakfast night had been a lie from the moment we stepped off. Dern made the call fast, the way good leaders do. We weren't going to get caught inside that building with vehicles closing. We pulled off the door and moved to fall back to a low stone wall about 40 meters out where we'd have cover and a sightline. Akafor was swearing under his breath, soft and constant like a prayer he didn't believe in. Tully, the young one, was breathing too hard. I put a hand flat on his shoulder for half a second as we moved, just to remind him there was a hand there. We made the wall, we got low, and then the night came apart. The first burst came from the high ground to our left, somewhere up among the terraces, then a second from the right. They had us in two directions before the vehicles even arrived, which meant the men in the trucks were just there to close the box. The crack of rounds going over your head is a sound your body understands before your brain does. You're down behind cover before you've decided anything. Dern was on the net calm, calling out what he could see. Akafor returned fire in short, controlled bursts, conserving. Bishop spotted a muzzle flash up and right and put rounds on it. For about 90 seconds it was a fight. A bad fight, but a fight, the kind you can imagine winning if the brakes go your way. Then the brakes stopped going our way. A round caught Bishop. I heard it before I understood it, that wet, awful sound, and then Bishop went sideways against the wall and didn't come back up the way a man does when he's just been knocked down. Akafor was on him in a second, dragging him flat, hands moving. Bishop was alive. He was cursing, which is a good sign. The cursing, it means there's still enough in the tank to be angry. But he wasn't shooting anymore. We were 5 guns and now we were 4. And the box kept closing. I remember the exact moment the fear went from personal to shared. It was when Dern keyed up to call for the QRF, the quick reaction force, the cavalry, the guys who are supposed to come get you when it all goes wrong, and the answer came back that they were a long way out. Weather had grounded the birds on the far side of the ridge. 40 minutes best case. 40 minutes might as well be 40 years when you've got men shooting at you from 2 sides and trucks rolling up to seal the third. I looked down the wall at the others, Akafor working on Bishop, Tully white-faced, firing but not at anything, just firing. Dern's jaw set so hard I could see the muscle jump, and I felt the thing I'd never felt with this team. I felt us all do the math at the same time and not like the answer. That's where the quiet came, not silence. There was plenty of noise, but a quiet inside all of us. The quiet of men who have just realized that wanting to live very badly is not the same as being able to. I want to slow down here because this is the part that matters, and if I rush it I'll cheapen it. When the QRF call came back 40 minutes out, Dern didn't fall apart. He's not built that way. But I saw something pass across his face that I'd never seen there, and I knew exactly what it was because the same thing was passing across mine. He was starting to think about which of us he might have to leave. He was starting to do the math that team leads aren't supposed to do out loud. And up on the net, into all of that came Echo. She'd been quiet for a stretch, not silent but minimal, just calling movement, just feeding us pictures. Now her voice came in and it had the same flat, level texture it always had. That was the strangest part. The whole world was coming down on us and she sounded like she was reading off a grocery list. Dern, she said, I see your whole problem from up here, you can't. Talk to me, Dern said. 2 shooters in the terraces left, stacked vertical, about a 40-meter gap. One's behind a low wall, one's higher, exposed when he leans out to fire. The element on your right is heavier, looks like 4, maybe 5 working the rocks. The trucks have stopped about 300 out. They're dismounting. They're not rushing you because they don't have to. They're going to set up a base of fire and bleed you. You've got, I'd say, 6 or 7 minutes before they're fully set and you lose the wall. 6 or 7 minutes. She said it the way you'd tell someone their bus was a little late. What do you need from me? Dern said. And here's the thing, he didn't ask her if she could help. He didn't ask her if she was sure. Somewhere in the last few minutes, without anybody saying so, the whole shape of who was leading this fight had shifted. Dern still had command, but the eyes that could actually see a way out belonged to the woman on the hill. I need you to stop firing on the left, she said. All of you, every round you put up there tells them where you are and keeps their heads where I don't want them. I need them comfortable. I need them to think you're pinned and stupid and out of ideas. Can you give me that? It's a hard thing to ask men in a firefight to stop firing. Every instinct you have screams against it. Shooting back is the one thing that makes you feel like you still have a say in whether you live. To go quiet, to take your finger off, to just sit there and take it while you trust someone you can't even see, that's not a tactical decision. That's an act of faith. Dern looked down the wall at us. He didn't say anything, he just nodded once. We stopped firing on the left. I will tell you, those next 30 seconds were among the longest of my life. The incoming didn't stop. If anything, it picked up because now we weren't answering and they could feel it, they could feel us breaking, and there's nothing that makes a man bolder than the sense that his enemy is finished. I heard them start to move. I heard the confidence in the way the fire came, less careful now, more eager. And in my ear, very softly, almost to herself, Echo started to talk. It wasn't to us, not really, it was the way some people talk when they're working, a quiet running murmur. Okay, she said, okay, there you are, come on, lean out for me, that's it, a little more, there. Then flat as ever. Target locked. I have thought about those two words more times than I can count. Why they hit the way they did, I think it's because of everything they weren't. They weren't a scream, they weren't a promise, they weren't I've got you or hold on or any of the things you say to comfort a man. They were just a statement of fact from someone who had stopped being afraid in a place where the rest of us could not stop being afraid. And fear, real fear, is the loneliest thing in the world. To hear someone speak from the far side of it, calm, certain, present, was like being handed a rope in the dark. She fired. You don't always hear an Overwatch shot the way you'd think. From where we were low behind the wall, what I heard was the crack rolling down off the high ground a beat after it happened, almost like an afterthought. But I heard something else right after it. Up in the terraces on the left, the eager fire from the higher shooter just stopped. 1 second it was there, raking over our heads, and the next it wasn't, and it didn't come back. One down, Echo said. Second shooter's going to react, he'll either run or he'll get curious. Give me a moment. A pause, the wind, my own heart in my ears. He's curious, she said, and there was something almost gentle in how she said it, almost sad. Target locked. The second crack rolled down the hill. The fire from the low wall on the left died too. Just like that, half the box was open. The whole left side of the trap that had been chewing us up went silent, and I felt the team breathe. I actually felt it, this collective intake, like a man surfacing. But she wasn't done, and neither were they. The heavier element on the right was still working the rocks. And now the dismounts from the trucks were getting into position 300 meters out. Echo called them like a clock. Right element shifting left to compensate for their dead. They don't know where the shots came from yet. They will. I've got maybe 2 more before they figure out the angle and start hunting me. That last part landed cold. Start hunting me. For the first time I understood that the woman I'd quietly written off as someone we'd have to carry was the only one of us doing the most dangerous job on the field. Up there alone. No wall, no team within reach. Every shot she took drew a thread back to her position, and she knew it, and she kept taking them because we couldn't make it without her. Akafir, she said, Bishop mobile. Negative, Akafir came back. He's stable but he's not walking. Then here's what happens. And she laid it out clean and fast. There was a fold in the ground behind us, she said, a dry channel cut by old runoff, deep enough to move in if we crawled, that ran back toward the valley floor and out of the line of fire from the right. We couldn't see it from where we were. She could see everything from where she was. She'd handle the right side element and the dismounts one at a time, drawing their attention up and away from us, and while she did that, we'd move Bishop into the channel and start working our way out. You're going to be the loudest thing on this hill, Dern said to her. Once you start, they're all coming for you. I know, she said. Just that, I know, no fear in it, no bravado either, just a person who had looked at the only math that worked and accepted her part in it. We moved Bishop. If you've never had to drag a friend who can't help you, who weighs as much as a man and a half because he's gone limp and heavy with it, while rounds are looking for you, I hope you never do. Akafir took his shoulders, I took his legs, and Tully went ahead to find the lip of that channel Echo had promised us. Dern stayed at the wall to cover the move, firing now, deliberately, drawing eyes. And up on the hill, Mara Vance went to work. I couldn't see what she was doing. I could only hear it and feel its effects. The crack of her rifle spaced out, patient, each one followed a moment later by a change in the fight. The fire on the right would surge towards some point, and then one of their guns would go quiet and the fire would surge somewhere else, confused, now angry. She was peeling them off one at a time and moving their attention around the field like she was conducting it. Every time they thought they'd found her angle, the next shot would come from a place that made no sense to them, because she was reading the whole board and they were only reading the last thing that hurt them. I heard it in her voice between shots, that low, steady murmur that wasn't for us. Not yet, there. Then those 2 words again and again, the only constant in a night that had no other constants. Target locked. Target locked. We made the channel. Tully found the lip just where she'd said it would be, and we slid Bishop down into it, and for the first time in what felt like an hour we were out of the direct line. The walls of the channel rose up on either side and the rounds went over instead of through. Akafar immediately got back to work on Bishop's wound with the cover the channel gave him, and I heard Bishop cuss at him, weak but alive, and I could have kissed them both. But Dern was still back at the wall, and Echo was still on the hill. Dern, move, she said. I've got the right element fixed, go now while they're looking at me. What about you, Dern said, what's your exfil? There was the smallest pause, the kind you'd never notice unless you'd been hanging on every word she said for the last 20 minutes the way we all had. I'll come down behind you once you're clear, she said. I move better when I'm not worried about you, go. He went. He covered the last few meters and dropped into the channel with us, and now all 6 of us on the ground were together and moving, hauling Bishop down that dry old runoff toward the valley floor, toward the spot where in 20-some minutes the birds would finally be able to reach us. And above us alone, she kept the whole right side of that fight looking the wrong way. I have replayed that part 1,000 times, the sound of her rifle getting farther behind us as we moved. The dismounts realizing finally that the deadly thing on this hill wasn't down in the channel with the team, it was up high all by itself, and they turned and went for it. I heard the fire shift. I heard it go from spraying after us to climbing the hill after her, focused now, a lot of it. And her shots kept coming, slower, more careful, each one buying us another 10 meters, each one drawing more of them toward her and away from us. There was a stretch, maybe 90 seconds, where I was certain we were going to lose her. The volume of fire going up that slope was something I can't really describe, and her rifle had gone quiet. I remember Dern stopping for half a step, just half a step, his whole body turned back toward the hill, this look on his face like he was about to do something that would get us all killed. Then her voice came over the net, a little tighter than before, a little out of breath, but there. I'm moving, she said. I'm okay, keep going, I'm right behind you. And she was. She came down off that hill in the dark, using the ground the way she'd used everything else that night, and she caught up to us at the valley floor maybe a minute before the birds came in low and loud over the ridge. Finally, the cavalry, late the way it always is. We got Bishop on first. He made it, by the way, I should say that. He made it, and he's got a scar he likes to show people and a story he tells wrong on purpose because the right version embarrasses him. I remember the inside of that helicopter. The noise, the wind, the relief that hits you so hard it feels almost like grief. And I remember looking across at Mara Vance, sitting there small in all that gear, the rifle across her knees, her hands finally not perfectly steady. I saw them shaking now, just a little now that it was over and she could afford it. And I understood something I hadn't before. She'd been afraid the whole time. Of course she had. She was a human being on a hillside with the whole world shooting at her. She'd just done her job through it, on the far side of it, in that flat, calm voice, because she knew the rest of us were listening. And she knew what her not breaking would do for men who were so close to breaking themselves. That's the part I didn't get at first. I thought courage was the absence of fear, the loud kind, the kind that looks like the men I'd spent my whole career around. It took a quiet woman on a cold hill to teach me that the deepest kind of courage is the steadiest. The kind that keeps its voice level so the people it loves can find their way back out of the dark. Nobody on that team ever wrote her off again, I'll tell you that. Akafar, who never shuts up, went silent the next morning when she walked into the room, and then he stood up and the rest of us stood up too, and nobody said anything because there was nothing to say that wouldn't have been too small. She just gave us this little awkward nod, like she didn't know what to do with it, and went and sat in her corner and started cleaning her rifle. I think about her every time someone tells me what a warrior is supposed to look like. People always want the loud version of the story, the explosions, the last stand, and there was plenty of that, I guess, but the part I carry isn't loud at all. It's 2 quiet words said in the worst moment of my life by someone who had already decided she'd rather risk everything than let the men below her give up. Target locked. I've heard a lot of things shouted on a lot of bad nights, but those 2 words, said soft and certain when everything else was coming apart, are the closest thing to a miracle I've ever lived through. And I'd follow that voice anywhere.